I'll tell you what annoys me the most about mainstream debates regarding video game addiction. It's that, unlike a lot of people who rail against stories concerning video game addiction, I actually think that video game addiction is a potential problem and something worth examining. Most pertinent, of course, are games that are designed quite literally to be addictive, games that employ gambling mechanics, games that use loops to draw players in and keep them coming back for more. A lot of that can be innocuous. Most entertainment is designed to be binged, is designed to be somewhat compelling, rather than something you're watching purely because you're entertained, although obviously entertainment's a big part of it. Another big part is it's just something as innocuous sounding as a cliffhanger. It's designed to keep you hooked, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does warrant thought. Exactly how much influence can a piece of entertainment have on its audience? The amount of tunes it can get us to dance to, be it a news report or just a good bit of drama, is powerful. There's no denying that. And long-term exposure to certain media channels, certain news stations, certain stations that present things in a certain way, with a certain philosophical bent, can over time shape the way you view the world. There's nothing extremist about saying that. That's fairly simple psychological science. We are, even on minuscule, pointless levels, influenced, encouraged, sometimes actively cajoled by the media we consume. The trouble is, we never have a sensible conversation about that because the people who want to talk about it the most don't know what the fuck they're talking about, focus on the most extreme, absurdist, unbelievable aspects of the discussion they can, and ultimately discredit any potential serious adult conversation we could have about the effects of media on a human mind. Instead of seriously examining, instead of bringing to the mainstream light, games that are specifically designed to manipulate their audiences, publicly, clearly designed to do that. We instead focus on a popular game just because it's popular, regardless of anything else it does, using little more than gut feelings and save the chillins rhetoric to try and panic people into running away from something rather than properly confronting it. To wit, we have clueless tabloid wankers over at 9 News. Do you remember them? We did a Jimquisition on them, warning its viewers, its readers, about the latest violent video game craze and what kind of horrific violent video games made clearly explicitly for children could be ruining the young brains of Australian toddlers. And before you try to answer, although you don't need to try to answer if you just saw the title of the video, which will tell you straight away, but before you try to answer, remember that these controversies are often based not around the content of the game itself, not around any demonstrably psychological harm a game can do, but about how popular the game is and the potential for talking about said game to get eyes on your little news story. With that in mind, you're probably all answering quite correctly that 9 News is going after Fortnite. Worried parents are searching for answers as the world begins to catch up to the issues surrounding game addiction. Oh, so it's game addiction now, because your headline, you said it was a violent video game craze. You're gonna have to pick a lane and stick to it. Oh, no you don't. You're a tabloid news shit rag. You can just say whatever you want. Just yell words like violent and addiction and hope that the pearl clutching of your parents reading it is enough to convince yourself that you're a real journalist. You're not. The latest gaming craze, Fortnite, boasts 46 million players worldwide, many of them far younger than the recommended age limit of 15. Well, that's not the game's fault. The game pits players against each other in an effort to be the last one standing in a running island battle. Mum Jacqueline's sons, Ryan, 11, and Dylan, 9, are fans of the game. Fans of the game. She allows them to play only on the condition that their homework comes first. I gave in to the peer pressure because if they don't play, then the kids at school look at them as though, oh, you're not cool, that type of thing. She told Current A Affair. She told A Current Affair. I shouldn't sight reading. Michael, another 11-year-old, said he felt he was addicted. You see, there's where the addicted bit comes in. But they haven't mentioned the violence yet. Let's keep reading. His mother, Nikki, said she was concerned about the impact it might have on him. He becomes not so much angry, he's just frustrated, she said. A frustrated kid? You don't fucking say. They're normally so happy and content with everything they have. It's almost like he needed a fix, and that worries me a lot. I don't like that. Gaming expert Seamus Burns said parents should pay attention to the ratings. Well, yeah, it would help if they did. He said Fortnite at least lets parents rest easy in terms of online stranger danger, as it doesn't have a chat tool. Oh, don't worry, they'll find something to complete the trifecta and throw that in as well. Psychiatrist Dr. Philip Tam said adolescents with conditions including ADHD, anxiety and depression were at most risk of negative impacts from video games. I'm sure you could also find anecdotal evidence that would come from myself as well, that those who have anxiety and other mental disorders can find video games quite an adequate escape, something that helps relieve their tensions and issues rather than exacerbates them. Another big problem is playing to excess of their real-world activities, so there's a detriment in their schooling or in their healthy sleeping pattern. I mean, yeah, that can happen. It isn't exactly a revelation that if you consume a lot of media to excess, if you consume a lot of anything to excess, and I speak from experience with Red Baron's Pizza, it's probably not going to be very good for you. Like, let's not just dismiss everything out of hand. I cannot discredit that last point because I once successfully feigned an illness for 2 weeks to play Final Fantasy VII. I wasn't sick, but I finagled 2 whole weeks away from school so I could go to my nan's and bring the PlayStation with me and play FF7 all day. But some would argue that it was also on my mother to care about her kids, because she sort of didn't give a shit, so you could get away with doing whatever you wanted. That is, however, not Squaresoft's fault. They were still Squaresoft at the time, weren't they? Over here, we do make sure that video games played by the child in the house are not played at the expense of the schoolwork. And when it comes to violent content for a child who isn't 18, let's all cut the crap, okay? Most of you watching this, if you're around my age, you were playing shit like Mortal Kombat when you were 10, if not younger. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I wholeheartedly reject the argument that makes this all about the children. I think it's cynical in its implementation, that argument. Certainly when I talk about loot boxes and the psychological impact they can have on people, I talk about individual human beings. Not children, not adults, just people. The audience as a whole. I think when you make it about kids, especially when it comes to games with age ratings, it's an argument that doesn't even deserve the dignity of a serious address. If you're still clutching your pearls and going, save the chillins from the video games, you're disrespecting your own kids. You're saying they're stupid. You're saying that they can't understand that cartoon violence isn't the same. I mean, let's look at what the baby boomers who love to panic about this kind of stuff were watching as kids. Tom and Jerry, cats and mice, kicking the shit out of, murdering each other, and then coming back the next day like nothing went wrong. And that's before we get into the racist shit that was in those cartoons, those innocent, fun cartoons, I'm not banging on about the time that Tom blacked up, am I? Or that cartoon where Donald Duck heiled Hitler, which I guess in America these days wouldn't even be fucking controversial. And while it sounds all nice to say, oh, I never let my child play dodgy games, I never let my child play a game with a gun in it. Most parents with intelligent kids do. They will let them play the odd violent game. And in this house, yeah, we do. Not all of them. Some of them are still a bit too extreme and we'd rather not. But, you know, he used to play Silent Hill as a kid. He used to love that shit. He's a big fan of fighting games as well because he likes character creator stuff. And I'm not going to stop him from playing that and indulge in his creative side like that because I, you know, fucking trust him and treat him like a human being. But look at me giving this absurdity a serious response when I said not long ago that it doesn't deserve one. That's the insidious trick of this whole thing, the ploy at work, because they know this isn't worth a serious debate. I know this isn't a serious debate, but it's so inherently off base, so utterly, inconceivably, bell-endingly stupid that some animal instinct within you compels you to engage with it regardless. I mean, let's look at this article again, shall we? What was actually said in this article by A Current Affair? Nothing! Sweet, cheery fuck all was said in this so-called article. All it says is that Fortnite is popular and some children are playing it. And let's look at this haunting, harrowing story from Mum Jacqueline and her sons Ryan 11 and Dylan 9. They are so addicted to it, so trapped within its thrall, that their mother makes them play it after they've done their homework. Shock horror! Oh wait, that's just some fairly responsible parenting, I think. Is that it? Oh wait, no, they just follow that up with a different story altogether. Some 11-year-old kid called Michael who said he felt addicted. I mean, it's hardly the world's biggest drug bust, is it? They had some words from his mother, Nikki, making this whole story revolve around two parents. And then they did the usual thing, let's get a quote-unquote game expert on to say that parents should pay attention to age ratings. And then we can follow that up with a psychiatrist saying something non-committal like, well, yeah, games can be bad for people with pre-existing conditions, I guess. The same repetitive, cyclical media song and dance that we see over and over again. The only major difference is this one's about Fortnite, and Fortnite is the biggest game in the world right now. Even as a kid, I could see the cynicism in this. I remember when Pokemon was the biggest game in the world, and so churches decided that Pokemon was Satan, that it promoted powers higher than God and allowed people to become masters, and therefore better than God. And they did the same with Harry Potter when that became popular years later. We see it in video games all the time as well. There's no denying that Grand Theft Auto was supremely violent, but the reason it became such a mainstream bugbear was because it was one of the biggest games in the world. There were nastier, more brutal, scarier, more violent games out there, but they weren't hugely popular. They didn't have mainstream appeal, and that's what made GTA scary. Or conversely, a fantastic ratings draw. There are games that have been blatantly designed to be addictive, and worse than that, designed to be addictive in a way that makes you spend more money. Games so much more insidious and nasty than anything you'd see Fortnite doing. But we don't see 9 News talking about Activision's patent or loot box controversies, what they did with Battlefront 2. They're not clever enough to do it, and they're not principled enough to do it. The only reason 9 News decided to make a story about Fortnite based on 2 mildly concerned parents is because it's Fortnite and because Fortnite's the biggest game in the world right now. It's cynical, it's pathetic, and 9 News, at this point, should fuck off.